What's up, everyone? This is John.
And I'm Ellie, and we are LiquidHaus, and this is HausKeeping, where we talk about all sorts of things. But today we're going to be talking about what we've been up to.
Yes, we've got, this past week has been pretty busy. As you can see, we've got 2 new rigs on our desk right now. And we actually wrapped this thing up just a few days ago. And this one over here, just a few days before that. So
We
let's
got
get
our
started.
studio. Yeah, we got our studio set up. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off
No,
there.
it's okay.
But we got our studio set up recently, and I think like the second that it was done, we kind of hit the ground running.
Yeah.
We had our first live stream on Twitch. Eventually, we'll have it set up on YouTube as well on Tuesday. If you want to go back and watch the VOD, you're more than welcome to do so. It is on there for you to enjoy building this system here in the Phanteks XTM3. Yeah, we're going to just talk about these builds. I mean, there's not much more to say since our last. I mean, there's a lot to talk about, but it's okay. We'll just keep it here. We're keeping it easy.
There's a good amount to like talk about in the sense of like thinking about it from a retrospect point of view, right? Is now that we're done with these builds, it's like let's talk about the pros and cons and what we liked and didn't like about it.
Yeah.
And because I mean, either build, as you can see, are completely different. And so yeah, let's just talk about it.
Well, do you want to start with yours?
Yeah.
Yours?
So
I don't know why we're like two separate ones. They're not.
know, right?
They're not two separate ones. And if you see the stream, you clearly see that.
Right. All right. So with Project VESA, that's what we're calling it. As you can see, it's standing on a monitor arm. This is Asus's ROG Ergo. I think the AAS01 Ergo monitor arm. Obviously, the monitor arm itself is adorned with ROG branding, and that was the main reason why we were kind of eyeballing that monitor arm for this kind of project. Over the years, and we wrote a blog article about Project VESA, and I'm just going to try and give you guys a small gist of it. But basically, we have been slowly playing and dabbling with a chassis design that would work in line with our EXT external radiator system, right? Obviously, it's a lot of fun to build an external radiator setup, but why not build an ITX-based chassis that mounts to your giant EXT system, right? And so that was kind of the thought process for just taking it to the next level. It's right. It's like, all right, well, how else can we mount or where else can we mount a PC chassis that we designed to, right?
You've seen like obviously wall PCs. You've seen desk PCs. You've seen all sorts of different size PCs. So we kind of wanted to take it a step further and having it attached to something that can be attached to your desk as well.
Right. While still also being like, maneuverable and out of the way. It's funny because yeah, well, it's funny because how large this thing is.
Yeah.
But you can literally just push it out of the way and now it's off of your desk.
Yeah.
The footprint itself is insanely small compared to any other desk or any other PC case that you would have on your desk. And if you need to access it or something like that, you just move it over onto your desk, right? And so that's the whole premise of, all right, well, what else can we mount a PC chassis to? It's like, well, obviously a monitor arm, but you take it to the next level, right? Obviously, over the years, Intel NUCs have always been something you would mount on the back of a VESA mounted monitor.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is not really a groundbreaking idea, but it's a fun idea in the sense that it can be more than just the NUC on the back of a monitor, right? It can be an obscenely absurd
water-cooled build,
water-cooled open air build with like the latest and greatest hardware, right? Without it really affecting anything other than, the size itself, right? Obviously, as you can see, just in this quick shot right here, we've got a sleeved tubing that goes down inside the cable routing channels of the Ergo arm from Asus. And that was purely coincidence. It ended up working out really well. And so we decided to do an external radiator system with this. We actually did a fun little Discord stream when we were setting up the studio. and some of our Discord members were like, it would be cool to run the tubing through the monitor arm rather than just having it like separate. And so we were able to figure that out, and it was a lot of fun to design this. This actually came about February of this year.
Yeah, February before we moved is when you started printing.
Yeah, and back then, and this is talked about a little bit in our blog, but Bamboo's new H2D printer was coming to market, and all the rumors were swirling about the new bed size, right? The newest thing with the H2Ds, it's like twice the size as not really twice the size, but a good amount of size larger than the X1C, which is the one that we have. And so, we thought right away, like, well, the bed size basically dictates any design moving forward with 3D printing in general, right? So let's design a chassis that would fit within the bed size of this new and upcoming H2D Bamboo Lab printer. And so that's the premise of why the size of this design is the size that it is. That being said, we had to print it in 4 different pieces on our X1C, and that was an absolute, I wouldn't say nightmare. The only reason it was a problem is because we had moved, and in the move, there was a lot of damage that happened to it. It kind of got crushed, it broke.
It wasn't a priority, unfortunately.
Yeah, at that moment, it was all about moving and figuring out a new place to live and all that stuff. And so this definitely fell to the wayside. And so the print took some damage for sure. And it was like a 4-day print, right? With all the individual pieces gluing it together and all that stuff. It ended up being like a week-long process. Really didn't want to go through that process again, doing all new prints. And so we tried to salvage it best we could.
It's not perfect, but it is good. It's great.
Yeah, it's good enough for the concept, right? And we absolutely want to do another version of this chassis, but we want to do it on the new Bamboo printer. Later on, as the H2D was out, we kind of figured out that the bed size wasn't actually fully printable on the H2D because of its dual nozzle process. So there were like 10 or 20 millimeters on either side of the print bed that you couldn't print because of the opposing nozzles. Now that Bamboo's coming out with an H2S printer, which specializes with one nozzle, same print bed size, and so that full new print bed is actually usable on the H2S that's coming out later. And so we're kind of eyeballing that one. It's actually a solid price. And so we're thinking about that and doing a V2 of that chassis design on the print bed, doing it in one go. And I think it would turn out, a lot more easier.
Oh, totally. A lot more practical. And it would probably be something that we would sell just like the KNF chassis on our website.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, another thing with this is you might be seeing is there's a few holes on the back of the chassis. That's actually meant for a 360 radiator mount that we never included. And the reason that is because of the external radiator design choice that we did with this first iteration. That being said, we're definitely maximizing the weight limit of this monitor arm.
I'm gonna say, yeah. We are maximizing.
Yeah, we went overboard with our BLK system. We went overboard with the quantum torque fittings. As some of you guys may know, the quantum torque fittings are insanely heavy, and we threw a bunch of them, right? We even water cooled the RAM. So like that's so much more weight than we were initially theorizing to put on the monitor arm.
What was the total weight limit that it was?
Well, Asus states it's like a 23 point something weight limit. And it's actually interesting because the weight limits differ based on the ergonomics of the monitor. So if you've got an ultra wide monitor, I think the weight limit is actually even below 20 pounds.
Okay.
But if you have like a 27 or 32, you can maximize it up to like 23.5, I think, like that. And this is most definitely heavier than 23. I would say it's probably 35 pounds.
Yeah, I was going to say it's about 30. It seems about 35 pounds.
Yeah, picking up, moving it around, it definitely feels that.
And it's certainly, there's some stability. Like it bounces a little bit, you can see.
Yeah, there's a little bit of wobble. It's still maneuverable in the sense that you can still move it around. You can't point it down as much, that's when it starts losing itself because it's just so heavy. In our V2 that we want to do, and we might even do a V2 just to be able to show you guys what this thing can do, is ditch the external radiator setup, reduce the water cooling aspects of it, actually simplify it quite a bit. And that's because we would mount the 360 radiator to the chassis design, right? So if you're adding a radiator to this,
you'll need to take away some
you're gonna have to take away a lot. Yeah,
for
and,
sure.
You know, we've got a massive 4080 Strix on this thing, right? It doesn't need a massive card like that. You can get away with a smaller card.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's just a play of what components you really want to mix and match with this to.
It also has a heavy board on it as well.
It does, yeah. That board is actually very heavy.
Yeah.
For just a motherboard itself, right?
Yeah.
It's got a back plate as well, and massive heat sinks. It's the X870 crosshair. And so, yeah, we kind of went overboard, and I got lost in the sauce with the tubing layout. It was late at night. I really wanted to get this thing done. We decided to throw in our DIY neon tube setup that a lot of you guys have been asking about. It's literally just it's the satin Corsair tubing. I think this is 14 millimeter OD, and then we just use quantum torque fittings. And instead of running fluid through the tubing, we just did a cob. We did 3 separate cob LED strips, all soldered at the ends, so that you've got light in 3 different directions. And through the satin tubing, it kind of
illuminates,
diffuses.
yeah.
And it looks really nice. And so that's kind of why we went with the transparent MDPCX tubing to have the light tube kind of emanate from the sleeving as well. So really fun little build, not really little, big old build, but you're going to see more of that in the future from us. So hope you guys enjoy that one.
Yeah, for sure. I think the 3D printer has opened up a whole different avenue for us as far as custom builds go. So it's been fun. Honestly, just kind of doing our own thing.
Yeah.
Doing these, and obviously doing builds like this one is also fun.
Right. Yeah. Let's talk about this one.
Yeah, we can talk about that. But anyway, the custom part is the custom stuff is our bread and butter.
Right.
But yeah, we have the Phanteks XTM3, which is this new APNX case from Phanteks. I think it's like a budget case. It's very light,
for sure.
very movable.
I think it's $60 or $70
USD.
Yeah,
it's a great price, and honestly, I don't really hate the case either. I think it's a really cool footprint. We decided to choose the Asus B860G motherboard, complemented with the Intel Core Ultra 7, so the 265K. We also used the same cooler as we did in this build.
Yeah, the Ryujin 3 water block.
Yeah, water block, which was fun. I will say there was kind of a challenge using the water block and this board together. I honestly just think because of the size, the MATX size is just a little bit.
It was interesting because of the fittings that they give you with the Ryujin 3. They're actually massive and very bulky.
Yeah. And
we discovered pretty quickly that the bulkiness of those fittings get in the way of the top NVMe slot.
Yeah.
And they also would get in the way if you had 4 DIMMs installed on the motherboard. So it's interesting, especially because you're playing with an ROG cooler on an ROG motherboard.
Right. You certainly wouldn't think that you would run into that, but I mean, it's possible, and it's probably true that Asus would just say, oh, they're not meant to work together. But I do feel that
I think they should absolutely be, but I think
there needs to be enough foresight in those things for the end user. I mean, if I were just a first-time builder and didn't have the things, like the requirements, we had to use a 90 to 90 on one of those?
Well, yeah, on the hard tubing. So do you want to talk about the loop layout?
Yeah, we can talk about the loop layout. So
because that affects it, right?
Right. So we obviously wanted to just do a CPU only loop. We were planning not even to do a full or a water cooled build in this entirely, besides like an AIO. So we decided to go obviously with our classic soft tubing with the sleeving, but because of the tube layout, the run layout. Okay, let's start from the very beginning. Typically, you want to have your main components cooled directly from a radiator when you're doing water cooling. So there is kind of an order to your loop layout. Due to the aesthetics and the size of this build and the fact that we did it on stream, we kind of negated the traditional loop layout. So you can actually see that the CPU is being directly cooled from the reservoir versus what we would typically have from the radiator.
The differences are negligible when you're dealing with like, oh, you know, when the fluid comes directly from the radiator into the CPU block, you get a little bit, you get like a point something degree Celsius difference versus like, oh, if the fluid is coming directly from the pump into the CPU block, you know, and you try and optimize those when you're water cooling at least as best as you can, especially for those people who are taking water cooling the next step. They want every little advantage that they can, right? And
which you should.
Yeah, absolutely.
That should be your practice.
That's the whole point of water cooling is you can plumb it the way that you want, right? But you know, with maintaining a clean aesthetic, being on stream, we just figured it actually would be better to change up the loop order layout a little bit. And so, yeah, you've got the CPU block, the inlet line coming directly from the pump res combo rather than the radiator. But as you can see, the loop layout itself is actually insanely clean and simple. And that was the whole goal.
Right. It's also not a huge footprint, being the fact that it is just an MATX case. I think that if it were a bigger case, we would obviously be a little bit more strict about how we did the loop design. But it turned out great. Of course, we ran into a couple, like we were talking about the issue with the water block screen running into, was it the screen as well as actually the full cooler underneath? Screen or not, you were gonna, if you were putting the fittings that were provided with, you're either going to run into the first DIMM slot on the RAM or the M.2 heatsink. So it's not very practical. I don't think that combo.
No, and luckily we had, you know, a lot smaller 90-degree fittings, and also older older Phanteks fittings that we used instead of the ROG ones, and the size difference was like massive. But then, of course, you have on the opposite side of that, you have the mismatch fittings, which I don't personally love, again, in practice for aesthetics. Right. And if it was a build that we weren't doing on stream, or if we were curating a video, we would have, you know, definitely had a bit of, not foresight, right? Because we're running into like, oh, okay, we're just going to swap this.
Certainly not foresight, but like, I don't know.
Well, it's interesting because our foresight told us everything would work, no problem. And then running into these problems, it's like, wow, in my mind, I think they just assumed that the Ryujin 3 water block would work in all of the same instances that the Ryujin 3 AIO does.
Yeah.
But the tubing that goes into the AIO versus the tubing
so
that
much
would,
thicker.
It's way different in terms of size. And I do feel like it might have been an oversight from Asus about that.
The fittings are gorgeous.
Yeah, the fittings are insane.
You can concuss someone by throwing it at their head.
Right.
That said.
And so you're paying, but you're paying for that, right? So you're paying for fittings that you're probably not going to end up using because they're in the way of the rest of your ROG hardware. So we thought that was pretty surprising.
Mm-hmm.
And every now and then you're going to come across something like that. It is interesting to see that happen between two ROG products rather than like, oh, an ROG product or like the Ryujin 3 OR block if it was like on an Aorus motherboard or something like that, right? Like, okay, I guess that makes sense. It's kind of annoying, but like with it happening on two ROG products, it's like, wow, it's like kind of shocking. So, you know, that was an annoying aspect about it.
Yeah.
The case itself also gave us a little bit of issues.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I mean, let's talk about it. First things first, they changed the standoff size. And by they, I mean Phanteks changed their standard standoff size.
And the reason we are highlighting that is because we have a specific focus about them, and it's because of our BLK system that utilizes the anchor points of the standoffs as the mounting solution for the BLK itself. So when you are mounting the BLK, you're removing the existing standoffs running the BLK inline, and then replacing those standoffs with resized standoffs that we offer you with a BLK order.
Yeah. That being said, there's no reason to be changing the standoff size on your cases mid-line production or whatever you would call it.
Yeah.
It seems just inconsistent.
Okay, so Phanteks changed the thread pitch or the thread size of their standoffs. The traditional standoffs for like cases around the world, I would say 90% of them are 632 thread type, and the most traditional height of these standoffs are quarter inch in height. So Phanteks negated that. They have slightly different heights on their NV line, and they also changed the thread type to M4. So you've got M4 thread type standoffs with slightly different heights on the entire NV line. And that was something that we had to actually, and luckily we found the right spec replacement standoffs for the BLK system. And we've had tons of NV line customers order the BLK system. And so that's something that we very much knew and that was fresh in our minds.
Yeah.
Doing this, they have a different standoff height from the NV line, but then they didn't keep the 632. So they kept the quarter inch height standoff, but they still said, you know what, we're still going to change the thread type anyway from 632 to M4. So for us, that threw us for a loop installing the BLK because it's all backwards. And we just don't understand the logic behind why they went that way, other than literally making changes and all of their retooling, all their manufacturing process for the sake of doing that. Like, yeah, I don't understand.
Make sense.
And that was kind of annoying to come across because in our heads, there's no reason for that.
You're right.
If you're thinking about like cutting costs in the manufacturing world, there's nothing wrong with utilizing all of the same tooling from the NV line for this, and yet they respect it. And now, as far as we know, this is the only case that uses quarter inch height standoffs with M4 thread, and we're gonna have to get all new resized standoffs for the BLK and have that as an option in case anyone has this case and wants to use our BLK system. That's not Phanteks' problem. That's our problem. Right. But it makes us come across these things and that's why we're like, that's so weird on why they would do something
it's just
like that.
It makes you think a little bit more critically.
Yeah.
Which then brings me to the next problem. And I think, honestly, the last problem that we had with this case, which is the power supply fitment. For some reason, you can't pre-install the power supply without installing the cables, because the cables need to be mushed into the power supply spot. And like, you have to it's a force fitment. Like, you have to like hold it and force it in and then put it into place, and it still doesn't sit flush on the right side. And this is with a Phanteks power supply. This is with Phanteks custom cables.
Literally the same situation as the Ryujin on the Asus cooler on an Asus motherboard.
Exactly. It's just a fitment thing. And it always comes down to fitment when all of our complaints, I would say, most of our complaints come down to fitment, whether it be radiator fitment.
But it's the same brand, so you shouldn't expect to run into those fitment issues.
Right. If I had purchased again, as an end user, I always just think of things from an end user point of view. If I were an inexperienced builder and like, it doesn't feel right. It doesn't seem right. When you're installing it,
it's not like the power supply that we used was like an extra large or extra long variant of a power supply. It is literally Phanteks Revolt X 1000 watt that they just came out with. They've got their separate cable sets that you can buy independently. This is a very much a current power supply. It's a traditional, I think, a 120 or 140 size, in the sense that it's not a rectangle. It is a square design or form factor, I should say. not at all anything about the situation when we selected the power supply. We thought, ooh, this might be too large of a power supply for this case, right?
Mhm.
Um, and yet we had that issue where
Yeah.
the cables, like the shroud for the power supply, tapers down, and as it tapers down, the cables are mashed in that taper.
Yeah, like it pushes it to like a degree
Right.
angle. I don't know what degree, just to come out properly. That also said, there is plenty of room for cable management. Like
Yeah.
I think that there's no shortage of space for that. So
It's so interesting that it comes down to like really small things that absolutely could have been resolved.
yeah.
A quick way to resolve that entire issue is to require an SFX power supply.
Sure.
And there was no SFX secondary bracket.
No.
They don't provide that. So they do force you into an ATX power supply with an issue that you can very quickly run into if you have too large of a power supply or too bulky of cables. And that was a surprising thing to come across live on stream.
Yeah. But I
Uh,
mean, we do come across those things when we're building. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, I just think that a lot of people, and this isn't just specific to Phanteks, but a lot of these case manufacturers just want to release cases, case after case after case, and they do not think about the top radiator support, bottom radiator support, fan support, even sometimes. There's just a little bit lacking. And it's not like they're not thinking about it entirely because it's there, obviously. There no cases negating top and bottom radiator support or whatever. Well, I guess sometimes cases don't have bottom radiator support. But that said, it's just that it just doesn't seem like they're thinking it through 100% before throwing this out of the market to try to make a couple bucks. I don't love it. I don't love it. And
Because like even if it was an AIO system and we didn't have the
yeah,
Ryujin issue, still have a problem with the power supply.
yeah.
Um, you know,
Let's just think it through.
yeah,
Just
let's
think it
think it
through.
through.
How many cases do we
This
release
is
in
a
a year?
really cool case. Other than those things, the form factor is actually
A
great.
beautiful form
Love
factor.
us an MATX case. They aren't that common in the
I
space.
actually love this off of here. Show you. Oh, maybe not. But I like the grill design a lot. I really like the mesh and the lines here. I think it's a really
Yeah, it's
nice.
sleek how they did because this part right here that's open because it's the exhaust on the power supply.
Mhm.
So you've got hot air rising, leaving the exhaust vent right here. I like how they did like little ghost slits versus the rest down here where
Correct.
it's closed.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
And the design carries to the front panel as well seamlessly.
Yep.
I was excited for this case to come out. I'm just a little disappointed in the nearsightedness of the design, unfortunately. But again, I like Phanteks, and I'm hopeful that I don't know. I'm hopeful that I'm going to stop being disappointed by them in the future.
Yeah, it's something that you see every now and then over the years, right? Is companies will slip up or increase their craftsmanship, their design work on some of their products. But it's what happens. One thing that did drive us nuts about this case in terms of like wrapping it up, and we had finished the build up just as we had filled it, so we hadn't done any cable management. And one of the reasons why we'd even try doing the cable management on live on stream was because every single APNX fan that you see here, they don't daisy chain. It's kind of shocking, even with the new FP2 fans that we've got as the front intake. They are not even daisy chainable. The RGB obviously has the little pigtails where you can daisy chain them, but like they're still full length cables on these fans, and there's so much cable management that you have to do to just clean up just the fan cables in general, let alone anything else in the case, right? Uh, I guess I gotta let it slide for their FP1 fans, which we use as the bottom intake and radiator fans. But for the FP2s, like those are relatively new, and I feel like at this point, a lot of these fans should be daisy chain at this point. And if not, it should be for a damn good reason on why they opted not to do daisy chaining. like I'm trying to think about it in terms of like the saving cost method. Like if anything,
Oh, well,
the extra
yeah.
long cables should technically cost money. So they are opting to spend more in material and costs for the longer cables than it might be for like a slight design refinement where it's easier way to just daisy chain. You could add uh, fan cables that are that long. Like for instance, we saw Haven's new fans at Computex,
Mhm.
and they had that exact thing. You even have that on Phanteks T30 fans, where it's just a little pigtail, and you've got the male and female right next to each other, but the full fan cable length is only like 3 or 4 inches long. That's all you need. And if you need anything more, then sell extensions, sell PWM extensions. But like for instance, Noise Blocker, one of our favorite fan companies of all time. Every single one of their fans has a little female PWM that's like a 1/2 inch long coming off the corner of the fan. But they also include a short and long PWM extension in the box as well with each fan. So it's like they know right away cable management sucks. But here's two options for you, right? A short or a long extension. And it's crazy how many companies just completely disregard that aspect. And it ends up being a huge pain point for every builder that has to go through this
I
experience.
mean, I couldn't even imagine being an system integrator and having to build these
Day
builds
in and day
day
out.
in and day out.
It's
I mean,
insane.
John used to work for a system integrator. How many builds were you doing per day? 10?
Yeah, 10.
10 to
If you
15?
wanted a bonus, you have to get over 15 bills a day.
So, I mean, forget about it. Forget about it. Forget about it. Daisy chain every single fan from this moment going
Yeah,
forward. I'm
without a
starting a
doubt.
petition and it's in the bio. Just kidding. But no, I'm serious. It was very rage baity and it
Rage inducing.
rage inducing, rage baiting, and it won me over.
Yeah.
So
We did a little reel about wrapping up the cables and then some B-roll. We posted on Instagram a few days ago. And you can tell, like we sped it up, but you can tell it's like, oh my gosh, there were so many times where it's like, okay, let's redo this. Think about how we can re-optimize how we're replacing each cable,
yeah.
going to each hub. And that's another thing is the PWM aspect of the fans, they didn't even link to each other. The RGB did because they had the little additional pigtail with the male end, you connect the next fan over,
Right.
but they didn't even offer that with the PWM. So you had to run a separate hub to have all the fans connected. And I don't even know if APNX has a hub available. We ended up using a Silverstone hub. It's a nice little eight port PWM hub that's like very small and very handy to have in situations like this.
Mm-hmm.
But man, it's 2025. Let's just daisy chain all these fans. Like, let's move on, adapt or die kind of situation,
Yeah,
Like
yeah, I agree. And I swear to God, you would be selling way more fans
you would, because
if
it
you
would be an
daisy chain
immediate
them.
selling and marketing aspect.
Promise you.
You could do so many funny little skit reels about
Think about
this
the marketing
exact situation,
opportunities.
right? Like, come on, let's just get with the program.
Okay, well, I think that we've made our mics bleed with our complaints today. I think we'll have to mention something about a rant in our caption or our title.
But that's how it goes. Not every product's going to be a home run.
Yeah.
And
I'm also getting high as hell sitting right next to this.
oh, it does emanate some fumes still. Yeah, we obviously sanded down the PLA as best we could. We filled it with putty. The exact one escapes me, but filled it in. It's not bondoed. It's with a special putty, and then sanded it down. Filler primer, sanded it down, and then we did a texture paint. Sanded or didn't sand down the texture, but
it smells. It smells a lot.
it hid the joint lines as best that we could, but then it also got beat up a little bit. We set it up in a way that it was angled super down, and overnight it actually fell. So it took a bit of damage, and we had to fix that with dabbing some paint back, and
it smells.
It was a mess.
We've been going on for 2 minutes now past that.
Okay, we're gonna wrap this up. Thanks so much, you guys, for watching,
Thank you.
and we'll catch you on the next one.